Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. Deuce. It's picky, but I didn't get a warm, fuzzy reaction to today's reading of the good news. It didn't seem to go with the collect about the God who declares his power by showing mercy and pity. But it was familiar all the way back to my childhood. That image of the flames of hell got my attention then and is still in my head all these many, many years later. It's an excellent attention grabber. It works just the way we tend to slow down for an accident. And it made me think of the movie comedy Cold Comfort Farm. If you've never seen it, it has a self-appointed preacher who gathers a devoted congregation, the Church of the Quivering Brethren, to hear him tell them how they are all going to burn. You'll fritter and fry. It's not reassuring, but it draws attention. And his audience seems to be there just so they can be overcome with dread. The heroine in the movie is horrified and walks out. And my first wish was that I could ignore Abraham and the rich man and Lazarus and that chasm and do the same. It's frequently I have to dig through my own reactions to get past that initial reaction. It just doesn't read like good news, especially if you identify with the rich man, as I think the parishioners in Cold Comfort Farm would have, with your focus on the bad news, and assume that you're damned, even if you're not rich. The passage, however, is the passage. So I looked into the commentaries, hoping to get beyond guilt and find something I could learn from. A universal point in the commentaries was the question, exactly who is Jesus talking to? The answer? He is preaching to a country sharply divided between the ordinary people, the lame, the poor, the blind, the other, and a small group of the powerful and the rich, the rulers and the Pharisees. Sound familiar? He's on his way to Jerusalem telling a series of stories found in no other gospel to crowds of ordinary people. In the words of one commentary, he is calling the new people of God. If I read the passage thinking of myself as an ordinary person, as Lazarus, it changes what I can see and hear. It promises justice, relief from pain. It is redemptive and transformative. It is good news. So what happens if we go back to hearing this like the rich man, bearing in mind that in today's world, by the standards of large parts of the world, we are rich? Then the story becomes uncomfortable. We're told that Lazarus is always there on the doorstep. His life is spent as a spectator to the sumptuous life of the rich man, always ignored. In today's world, Lazarus might be homeless or working a minimum wage job, maybe a single mother. In this story, for the first time, the rich man notices him. Lazarus has something he wants, and so he asks Father Abraham to send Lazarus with water. Commentaries said that calling Abraham father was a social one-upmanship, by the way, kind of like claiming kinship with the Pope. Abraham says He can't do that. Not won't, but can't. So the rich man tries again for the sake of his brothers. And again, the answer is no, though the reason is different. They have already been told through Moses and the prophets, but they chose not to listen. What struck me, and I finally began to see the possibility of some good news, was the inability of the rich man to understand, to see that he was no longer in the same place. He no longer has the power to have people waiting on him because there is a great chasm that no one can cross. It's a more subtle point than the heaven and hell imagery, but it seems to me to be particularly important in our divided world. That great chasm has been fixed. Who did that? I'm thinking the rich man did it. He passed by Lazarus for a lifetime, never saw him, still can't see him. All he sees is a servant, a part of the furniture, something he can use. He doesn't see the possibility of a new and different kind of relationship. Would the chasm disappear if he had asked Lazarus instead of commanding? Maybe if he'd said, please? We don't get to know. But we do know that the rich man doesn't get it. And we don't always get it either. It's part of our common humanity not to get it. We are living in a world as stratified as the Israel of Jesus' day. So often we see the role, the clerk, the mechanic, the nurse, and not the person. But just as in the story, the longer we do that, the harder it is to stop. It's leading to chasms too wide to cross in our national life. There are some glimmers of hope. I read a lot of news, and this one caught my attention. I've seen a number of articles recently about how hard it is to get a job with poor teeth and how difficult to get dental care for somebody on a limited income. I never saw that particular roadblock for those trying to struggle up from poverty. In another instance, our new technology can be destructive and separate us. I have noticed that when I succumb to temptation and check out the expensive dress on my internet page, I will immediately be bombarded with more dresses. I won't see those things if I don't show some interest. And if somebody doesn't decide maybe I could afford an expensive dress. But someone with a different internet profile will see something different. Somebody invisible is limiting our options in our world, making my world no longer looking exactly like yours. Again, all of my children are living out of state. They visit often, and they bring friends. Some of their friends come from places where they have limited experience of a place like rural Maine. They are regularly surprised when they meet somebody in a t-shirt, boots, and jeans to find a jazz musician or a botanist or some such person under the work clothes. If they had made assumptions too soon, they would have lost that experience of acquaintance. Another example of a tighter one. For example, my daughter is a costume designer and regularly has summer work at the theater in Monmouth, west of Augusta, in farming country. The theater hires lots of urban people for the summer. Last summer, one was a young black actress who got to Monmouth and was terrified. You could say even to the point of quivering, because she saw so many men driving around in pickups with guns in the back window. It took a long time to persuade her they weren't all out to kill her. Stereotypes limit our world as they limited her. Jesus calls us to open our eyes. Amen.